And we're going to continue our fundamental JavaScript journey today. We're going to build on what we used in the last two videos and use our introductory functional programming concepts to go ahead and start manipulating the DOM. So the DOM is the document object model, and this document is our website. So it's everything in our HTML, and this is where JavaScript gets really fun. We can start manipulating what we actually show the user and do it in a way that can make it interactive. So let's go ahead and make a paragraph tag. We're going to give it the ID of what? Greeting text, let's say. And for now, let's just give this a static value, a value that we've written in that's not being automatically populated, of hey. And let's also put in a button, and we'll say, what's a good name for our button? Greeting, we'll just say, or keep it really simple, greeting button, and that is get day. Let's change that to, actually, we'll just be a little bit more general for now, time button, and get time, because we might change this a bit later. Spoilers, we will change this a bit later, and we're going to get into more interesting stuff. But for now, let's check to make sure that worked with our HTML. Okay, so here's hey, here's get time, but you know, that looks really ugly, so I think here's a good time to knock out a little introduction to CSS as well. So we're going to create a file that's within this fundamentals directory, and we've named it style.css. Actually, just to be a little nitpicky, I'm going to name it styles.css, and we are going to style the ID of greeting text to start out. And so the way you reference an ID is with a pound or hashtag. Depending on how old you are, you might say that in a different way. We're going to give it a background of a nice deep blue, Dodger blue. That's one of my favorite colors. Then the text color, we'll make it white. And we'll just do a padding of 20 pixels to give some space around the text. Let's see, what else? How about we make a font weight, and you guys can see we have choices here. This is another great thing about VS Code, is it helps you a lot with even understanding how to interact with different key value pairs when you're working within different parts of whatever it is you're coding, especially if you have an extension built in. It can even make that a bit more easy for you. So we have all the font weights here, 100 to 900. 400 is your default font weight, and I believe 700 is what is considered to be bold for your bold keyword, but we're just going to use bold to make sure that text stands out just a tad. And then let's just give that a quick check. Oh, nothing happened. And if you guys remember an earlier video, it's because we did not reference our style sheet in the way that we needed to reference our scripts in our app.js file. So let's go ahead and knock that out. We'll do a link with a rel attribute. We'll call it style sheet. And then for some browsers, you still need to do this, but I believe now with HTML5, you don't need to give it a type, but we'll just do it for the sake of being safe and complete here. And then our href will be our styles.css. So, okay, we'll go ahead and close that link tag. It doesn't close in the way the script tag closes with another ending tag, because this just references, right? We're just linking to the style sheet. There's nothing that we would write in here. So, okay, let's save our HTML file. Now we should have a reference to our style sheet, and nice. Okay, that's cool. You know, it's not the largest greeting, so let's just pump that up a tad to 24 pixels. All right, that's fine with me. It's fine with you guys. And we also want to give our button some styles as well. So what do we have for our button? The ID is time button, and we're going to reference it in the same way here. So time button, let's go ahead and say padding, and unlike above where we just used one value, which this is kind of shorthand, it references 4 different values. So you have top right, bottom and left, and that's kind of the order they work when you're referencing things. If you use two values, we have here the top and bottom, and then the left and right. So if you wanted to write that out in a different way, kind of like long-handed, it would look like this. But because there's only two values, we can just chop these guys off. So we have top and bottom, left and right. So that's going to give us this nice rectangle shape. So we have 10 pixels away from our text, 20 pixels away from our text here. And we'll just go ahead and make the background a tomato color. And that kind of reminds me, actually, you guys do not need to know all these keywords here. You don't need to know, I mean, that white is a color, Dodger blue is a color, tomato is a color, because you have these RGB values. This is essentially just how you and CSS understand what color you're referencing or what color you're trying to showcase to the user. So RGB stands for red, green, blue, just really quickly, and each of these have a value of red values from 0 to 255. The green is the same, 0 to 255, and same for the blue. So within these, you guys can see if it starts with 0, you have 256 times 256 times 256 combinations of color. So tons of choices. And not only that, you can actually do opacity as well. So if we wanted to check out white, just a really quick detour here, we could do 6Fs, which is the hex value that allows us to go up to white. And actually, a lot of people don't know this. You can write the opacity value right after this. So you can see at the very top here, we have the RGB A value, which A stands for alpha. That's the alpha opacity value of 80. So now we're 80% opaque or 20% transparent, however you want to look at it. So we have this nice light gray looking thing, but if we had this on top of something else, it would take on a little bit of the characteristics of whatever's behind it. So now you can see it looks kind of, this slightly lighter Dodger blue, but that's just because it's a little bit transparent. We don't want that for now, so we'll just go back to the solid white. And a shorthand, if you want these values to repeat, because white is just all Fs, we couldn't do this with the hex value of Dodger blue because it does not repeat. It's kind of this funky looking one. It's a little bit more particular, but for something like white or, a gray, you can just repeat it. So we can just check that out quickly. Okay, so now we have this gray color. It doesn't contrast a lot though. So let's just go ahead and we will keep it white, and we'll just use the shorthand for this one. It doesn't matter if it's capitalized or lowercase. So let's go ahead and keep building our button. You can see it's kind of getting built up over here. So I'll make the color white, the font size, we'll go ahead and make it 16 pixels. What else do we want to do? Let's get rid of that weird tiny gray border, if you guys can see that from here. Yeah, that's looking pretty good. And then not only do we want to style our button, we want to give our users some clues that the button's going to be able to be interacted with. And so the way we do that is we reference the button in the same way, except for now we want to add a selector to the end of it that has to do with behavior, and we are going to say on hover that we want to change the cursor to pointer. Okay, so everything else around this button should remain the same. Check out the cursor. When we hover over it, nice. So we're pointing to it. And when I click on it, nothing happens. And that is because we haven't done any work in our JavaScript yet. So let's go ahead and do that. So we have this constlet and var set of choices of variable types. I promise we'll get to that in just a bit. For now, just to kind of learn in action, what we want to know is that const is basically creating a read-only memory store, meaning that if you do not want the value of the variable to be overwritten, const is great. Let is for something that could be dynamic and prone to change over time throughout your application. Const is going to be something for a reference to something that will not go anywhere. So a great example of this is this button that we have. So let's say time button, We're using camel case here just as our convention. So we're starting out lowercase and then any other subsequent word is in uppercase. That's just, it makes it easier to read and it keeps it easy for you to name variables and keep track of them. So what we're going to do is grab this button out of the DOM, and for that we're going to say document, which references the document object model. Then we're going to get element by ID, and we're going to check out our ID name. It is time button. So time underscore button. And just to make sure that we are getting that, let's go ahead and console log time button. Okay, and then we don't want to, let's see, what else do we have? Any other random console logs here? Okay, we'll keep the greeting one for now. And just get rid of this call to greeting. So that should clean up our console a bit. We'll clear the console, refresh, and now you can see we've gotten the button. So that's just the console log of the variable in which we're storing the button, our time button that we've just created here. And the reason that we are storing this into a variable, and this is definitely a mistake I see a lot of people making, not a huge one, but you can imagine, say you're interacting with this button a million times. We don't need to go out to the DOM and get the button a million times. We only have to do it once. So now we have this place in memory stored that we can reference in our JavaScript script in the app.js file, and it's going to have already done that work for us, so we don't need to keep doing it. And now what we want to do, because we want to interact with this time button, is we're going to add an event listener. And you guys can see VS Code already kind of predicted the future for us. Sometimes it's not quite this easy, but here it was. We're going to add an event listener, and there's all sorts of events that we can add. You guys can see just a quick list VS Code's providing us, but we're going to use click. And so click takes a couple, well, add event listener rather, takes a couple of arguments. Well, 3, we're only going to use 2 here. Click is the choice for the event that we want. So we want to do something on click of this button, and on click of this button, we're going to provide a function as our second argument. And a lot of people call this a callback function because, you know, when something happens here, when this click event happens, this function will fire. So what do we want to do here? We want to say greeting, and that is going to fire off our greeting function. And instead of saying Bob, let's just leave it empty, and that should say read if all goes according to plan, and it should log out read to the console. So let's see if that works. We'll refresh the page here. We've gotten rid of our console.log statement that's just showing our button. Boom, hey read, it's Wednesday. All right, sweet guys. So now we can interact with the DOM. We will take this many steps further in the next video. And if you enjoy this video, please like and subscribe. It helps out the YouTube algorithm a bunch, and we're trying to grow this channel. So greatly appreciated there. I'll see you guys next time.